welcome to Pitch Sport, always my favourite time of the week. Our subject now is, well, it's an interesting one. Rematches, guys that managed to retain titles and the biggest and the best, the ones that were on the tip of the tongue at the time. Where do we start?
Well, I guess you can start way at the beginning. I mean, we have rematches and we have heavyweight champs who have lost their title and tried to regain it, sometimes not against the same fighter who beat them, but, against the current heavyweight champ at the time. I guess you go the first time, you go way back, James J. Corbett had lost his title to Fitzsimmons. He never got a rematch, but he challenged Jeffries, which was really the first fight of the 20th century, 1900, pretty early in the century to do that. And he lost. He got knocked out once in a very close fight. He was leading, and about the 23rd round, he was stopped. They did a rematch after that, and he was knocked out again. You had Fitzsimmons. He made a comeback after losing his. That was probably the first rematch. He made a comeback and had a rematch with James J. Jeffries. Jeffries knocked him out, so he wasn't able to do it. Jeffries made what is one of the most famous and infamous comebacks of all time against Jack Johnson. 6-year layoff. Came back and Johnson just destroyed him. The next time we have a rematch for the titles, probably again one of the most famous fights of all time, Jack Dempsey, who had lost his title to Gene Tunney. 120,000 people in Philadelphia. Dempsey came back, knocked out the #1 contender Jack Sharkey in the interim to qualify for the return bout. He fought Tunney in one of the most famous bouts of all time, the long count. He dropped Tunney, didn't go to the neutral corner. Tunney got up, came on and won the fight. So Dempsey failed. We get another opportunity for a guy to, again, it wasn't a direct rematch, but it was when, actually Jack Sharkey and Schmeling fought for the vacant title, and Schmeling won the fight ignominiously on a foul. Only time in boxing that the heavyweight title changed. Well, it was a vacant title that the heavyweight title was won on a foul. And after much public clamor, they fought a rematch. That fight was very controversial. Most people thought that Schmeling should have got the decision, but Sharkey was going to walk out of that with that title come hell or high water. It gave the birth to the famous phrase, "We was robbed," which is what the manager was Schmeling.
Many times as well.
It was robbed. We've heard it before or since, but it was first time it was really chronicled on air. And they never gave a return bout to Schmeling. He had to wait. Again, he beat Joe Louis in a non-title fight and then went back for the world title, and Louis destroyed him in one round. So heavyweight champions or former champs were not having a very good run of it up until this time. Even, the aforementioned Lewis himself had given up the title, pretty much like Tyson Fury, and came back and fought the Ezzard Charles, who had won the vacant championship and wasn't able to do it. And then it was a crazy 4-fight series where Walcott and Charles fought for the vacant title. Charles won it. In a rematch, Charles successfully defended against Walcott, but the third time, Walcott got lucky and knocked him out. Charles tried to regain the title in a 4th fight and wasn't able to do it. Walcott won a decision. So that was a rematch, direct rematch, where Charles, was unable to do it. And then you had a famous Walcott, the self-same Walcott fought Marciano, got knocked out in a terrific fight in the 13th round. And in a rematch, he got knocked out and won. It was his last fight. Many people said he just didn't want to take another beating. He quit. But then when it really became, after the war, when television started, the management had control of the fighters more than the promoter. You had it where a rematch was basically built into the contract, John. So if you got a shot at the heavyweight title, you were tied up with a rematch. And the first real triple series was when Floyd Patterson fought Ingemar Johansson.
Wow.
Johansson upset him and beat him the first time. In a direct rematch, Patterson became the first man to regain the heavyweight title. That was in 1960 at the Polo Grounds. And in the third fight, they both knocked each other down once apiece, and Patterson knocked down Johansson and stopped him and prevailed. So that was the first triple series. And then you go, of course, with Ali trying to regain the title when he came back with Frazier and losing it. But Ali then became the first fighter in history to become a heavyweight champ who regained his title 3 times. After losing to Frazier, he beat George Foreman to regain the title, then lost to Leon Spinks and beat him in a return bout. And then, John, with the split champions, with the organizational titles, as they call them, WBA, WBC, WBO, IBF, you had many who would win a WBC, a WBO, and regain that. Lennox Lewis is a triple champion. He regained his title twice. He lost to McCall, beat him in the rematch. Then he lost to Hasim Rahman and beat him in the rematch. He went out with a triple championship. Evander Holyfield, between the organizational titles, was a triple champ. Riddick Bowe regained his title. Tim Witherspoon regained organizational titles. Klitschko regained titles. So it became more, it was easier to do because you didn't have to directly beat the man who beat you in the rematch. You were able to win a title another way. So Holyfield has held the title 4 times, Lennox Lewis and Muhammad Ali 3. But there's been a number of fights who've been able to regain the title. Riddick Bowe, Holyfield against Bowe. So it's happened more often than not. But to win a title 3 times, a heavyweight title, it's fairly unique. And this is what Joshua's up against now. So it's going to really, again, for him, it's history making, it's legacy establishing. It is something for him that will separate him from the weak from the chair.
So, Don, when you're talking about the rematches, when you talk about Corbett, Jeffries, Dempsey, how many of those were actually upsets? How many of those were expected to go the way they did?
Right. Well, I mean, if you go back to the early ones where the guys were not maybe direct rematches before later, most of the time the heavyweight champ won. When they did win the rematch, Patterson was a huge upset because again nobody had ever done it before, so that was not anticipated. When Ali won the rematch, not when he regained it, but just on rematches, the rematch with Spinks. Well, he was a huge favorite the first time. He was a slighter favorite the next time, but he was expected to win that, as was Lennox Lewis when he fought McCall and when he fought Rahman. So generally speaking, when they're upset like Ruiz against Joshua, the champion is favored because it's perceived as a fluke. You know, I think the Holyfield Bowe. So generally when they've done it, it's in a direct rematch, yes. When the champ has come back to fight somebody else for the title, like Ali and Foreman, that was a huge upset. Nobody thought he was going to win. It was sort of on the level of when he first won the title with Sonny Liston. So that was different. But generally when it's a kind of a fluke, the champ is expected. Now, this is unique because going into the rematch, the favorite is Usyk. So they had enough respect. You know, Joshua, when he fought the rematch with Ruiz, he was the favorite in the rematch. In this fight, it's different, John. He is the underdog going in. So it'd be considered a bit of an upset if he beats him. So it wouldn't be a fight that I think that people gain a lot more respect for Usyk. I think they acknowledge him as a legitimate fighter. So this, while I think he can win, he is the underdog going back into this fight.
Where would it rank if Anthony Joshua did pull this rematch win off? Where would it rank amongst the rematches, the best of the best? Would it rank highly, or would it be well, it's expected?
No, as I say, because he's going in and people have gained a lot more respect for Usyk. It'd probably be, in my opinion, like the Holyfield and Bowe rematch when Holyfield lost to him and then came back. You know, 2 outstanding fights. Both were appreciated with their own ability level and things like that. They weren't. It wasn't like somebody again a 30-1 underdog like Douglas, where nobody respected. These are guys on equal levels of respect. So I think it would be something, a great achievement, no doubt about it, because he's beating a guy who's perceived to be now an outstanding and maybe a great fighter in Usyk.
And it will put him in the history books as well and put him up there, in regards of what you think of his experience, his talent, his style. In the record books, he'd be one of the very few fighters to achieve what he's achieved. It's called the 3-peat. And now, after he won it the first time, the second time, he said, the first time felt so nice, I had to do it twice. I don't know what the mantra is going to be after this fight if he pulls it off.
Well,
he did. I sensed a little bit of discomfort in regards to how he's being perceived by the public and how he's been written off for this fight. Because he said, you know, he's liable to throw the belts in the bin. Because what else has he got to do? He's been nice, he's been right, he's been polite, he's been respectful, but people are still finding fault with what this young man's achieved. So a win, as you say, is probably more important to Joshua than anything, because it could pencil the end of his career. He could decide to say, you know what, I'm out of here. I don't want to play second fiddle. You know, I've come here to achieve something outstanding, and so I could actually really see that. And I know he's never indicated that, but I could actually really see that with Alexander Usyk, very, very talented individual, beatable. Everybody is, but is there anybody out there to beat him at the moment? That's the question. So will he be that fighter to go on and stick around like super glue if he dared lose and come back again and try to fight again. So it's very hard to do it. And so these guys that made our history, that won titles and came back and won it again, and then did it again. That's it's a different gravy. It's a different strength. It's a different kind of championship material.
Yes. And John, also beating the man who, as I said, we talked about some of the fighters who regained the title by fighting different fighters or different champions. But to defeat the man who's beaten you, that's hard because you always have it in your mind that he can beat me. He did beat me. The Ruiz fight, he got knocked out. In the rematch, Joshua didn't fight a slugging match. He fought a very technical fight and I talked to Jeff McCracken, the idea was just to get the title back. Win it if you can win it. Don't take the risk. The championship is the prize, not how you look doing it, just win. And he dominated him. I mean, he was a lesser fighter than Usyk, Ruiz, I'm sure, and that was perceived as a fluke. With Usyk, it's a bit different. They knew he was an outstanding fighter. The question was, could he beat a man that much bigger than him? But for Joshua to do that, this is his defining moment, particularly, John, if Tyson Fury does not fight again. This is the bout that's going to measure him by. And as you said, if he decides to retire after that, I wouldn't be that shocked either, because he's done everything he could really do. If there's not a Tyson Fury fight out there, there's the money. But as you know, as a boxer, you got to have a motivation. You keep on fighting, you get stale because there's no challenge. You got to have something to go by, a better fighter, a bigger payday. And I don't know if Tyson Fury retires. There is no bigger payday out there for Joshua. There's nothing.
And of course, Alexander Usyk, if he did lose, would it make him like a one-hit wonder like Douglas, Leon Spinks, Ruiz, Johnson? Would it make? Would you dare to put him in that category?
No, because he was a great cruiserweight. Remember, he was an undisputed cruiserweight champ. So it was great in the division. He probably the greatest cruiserweight of all time in terms of accomplishment. So he already did something. He wasn't a guy that was like Ruiz, a 10-1 underdog, or a Douglas 30-1 underdog, came, had his night and left. He had a criteria. The question with him not that he was a great fighter or ability, could he move that far up? It's like a great featherweight, a great lightweight who moves up to the welterweight division. He doesn't get that extra boost having won the title, but he defined himself. Ray Robinson was the greatest middleweight or welterweight. He couldn't win the light heavyweight title. There's only so far you can go, but I don't think that diminished him as a great fighter in his own right. It'll only make Usyk look better if he wins, but I think he's established himself. That's why I said he has a legacy and he can go back to fighting it. He was talking on the internet. I know it's kind of crazy that he would entertain a Canelo fight at that cruiserweight. So, I mean, he has his legacy there. He can enhance the legacy, but he's got it. Joshua has one division to define himself, and that's the heavyweight division. And as I say, this is the fight that for him, I think, sets the legacy, where people will be talking 10 years. How great was it? Like we just talked about Tyson Fury. If he loses that, he loses a lot more. Then he's going to be classified like Frank Bruno. Good fighter, popular fighter, but as you say, he won the title, beat guys that everybody expected him to beat. And then when he fought a fighter that he should have beaten, he doesn't. So I think he loses a lot more. I think Usyk is there. Maybe there'll be a third fight. I don't know. We'll have to see how this looks. Could be a great fight as well.
Again, you've got to look at the caliber of opponents Anthony Joshua's beat, compare them to the caliber of opponents that Tyson Fury's beat. Is that just how the dice fell, how the numbers landed? Does it reflect on how good Tyson Fury and Joshua are when you compare the two of them? Or it just reflects on good management, good negotiation skills in regards to getting the right opponents for your fighter? So that could also be misleading.
Yes.
You look at Fury's opponents, you look at Joshua's opponent, it could be very misleading. Usyk, look at Usyk now, certain latest images of him. He's changed in size, changed in shape. Could that affect the outcome too? Could that affect his style of fight? Could that affect the successes he's had?
I think so. I think you don't, you repeat your success. You don't change it. A lot of times a smaller guy wins and they say, well, bulk him up. But that's not what won for Usyk. His skill. I mean, he was able to take the fight to Joshua. He was dominating it. He wasn't going to knock him out. I don't think he has the strength to knock out Joshua. Anything's possible, but he did it on, ring generalship and his knowledge of boxing and the in and out fight. He never let Joshua really set the tone, set the fight, set the pace. So I think if he tries to change his strategy, I think that could be a big mistake. It looks like he's a bigger man now. I don't know. What's your perception? It looks like they bulked him up.
It does look like he's really put the weight on. But remember, Joshua's always been a big guy. He's always been a big unit. So This is new for him to carry in a fight. This is, I wonder, questioning what they weigh in at come Friday after the weigh-in. I wonder how much of an indication that will be in regards to how this fight will turn out. And again, what would I have done if I was Usyk and beating him the way he did, and the speed work in general shit work for him? Would you want to put the weight on it? To me, that's an indication that he wants to knock him out. He doesn't want to fight to go the distance. It's an indication that he felt the strength and the natural weight of Anthony Joshua in fight number one. Is he going to try and compete that? So you can put weight on, but it's got to be natural weight that works with your biomechanics, works with your body, your body's fixture. So again, there must be a method behind the madness in both camps. Joshua is saying this fight doesn't go the distance, which means now he's to me now tells us that he's not going to try and outsmart himself and be three smart. He's going to go out there and do what he does and try and jump on him and use his natural ability. Looking at Usyk, looking at the size of him, looking at the successes he had in the last fight, almost stopping Joshua, it looks like he's also come to make a statement and not let this go the distance. But it's all very intriguing.
It is very intriguing. Again, a lot of people said Joshua, again, Usyk never let him get off. He didn't fight. His fight wasn't aggressive enough. I think so too. I think if he wants to make a statement, go for the knockout. Obviously he feels the skill level, with Usyk, even though he's got the weight and size over him, Usyk is better at that. So what does he have? The natural power, the natural punching power. I can see that happening. That's going to be very interesting. And if he can get off, I think he's got the power to hurt anybody, Joshua. So I really think it's really going to be an outstanding fight. I really am looking forward to it as a fan. This is one of the few times when you're in the industry, John, you get jaded just to get 1,000 fights. But this is really very provocative on many, many levels. Yeah, I think it's really going to be good. And I think you're going to have much more, as you say, a slugging match, because Usyk now has the confidence. I beat this guy. Maybe I can knock him out. And the other guy knows that I got to knock him out. He's not going to fight this fight like he did Ruiz. He's not going to try to outbox this guy. Now it's all or nothing. Again, it's much more desperate. I think the Ruiz fight was perceived by everybody a fluke. He got caught a shot, and that was it. This fight, he was outboxed, and he had 12 rounds. He couldn't catch him. I think they're going to say, you got to go out. And the other wild card here, he's got a new trainer. How does he react to that guy? How does this trainer work with him? That's really something. Sometimes it's for the better, but sometimes, it's not. This is a whole different method there.
There's a method to the madness, but will this fight be down in the history of rematches, and where will we place it? We will have to wait and see next week. Don, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to see what this week turns out as well.
I can't wait to the conversation after this where we can get analyzed. Thanks.